articulated flies is a really cool skill to have. Lets you have a much larger fly that has a ton more movement than just a standard, say like a single hook woolly booger. So in episode 12, we're going to teach you how to articulate a fly. So we're going to talk about a couple of different ways to articulate a fly, from either having a hook to hook connection or a shank to hook connection. There's a couple ways of doing it. Stay tuned. We're going to show you how it's done. So we're going to start off with our thread on the front hook. So we're going to assume that this hook has already been tied for the rear. So we're going to assume there's already a tail and a body on this rear hook. There's a lot of different types of wire you can buy. Some shops will sell articulating wire, or intruder wire also works. You can also buy craft wire at your local store. Just make sure that it is strong enough to be able to handle the fish that you plan to catch on these flies. So one of the biggest things, we want to make sure that these articulated flies are really strong and that this wire does not pull out. So we're going to tie the wire in a pretty good ways up the shank. Then we have a bead. You can purchase these at a craft store, online. There's certain fly tying beads as well if you want something specific that's kind of cool. Some of them have a little more texture, and you can even get some that kind of rattle. Anyways, the bead is kind of a placeholder so that your fly doesn't get as fouled. It kind of helps keep this line a little stiff back to this rear hook. Next move is to thread our rear hook onto the wire. Now the wire is going to go back through the bead. And don't you feel like you're doing arts and crafts? So we're going to pull this tight. Now the further back you have this second hook, of course, the longer your fly is going to be. The shorter you have it, the smaller your fly is going to be. You want to try to find a happy medium that makes sense for this gap here for a fish to eat it. Also, you want to make sure that it's not too long, or else it will be a little more prone to foul. So I like about right there, looks good. We're going to pull this bead rearwards to help keep that shape. Now we're going to pinch that with our left hand and come in and start wrapping forwards. I left this wire a little long for demonstration purposes. So we have our wire now stretched out to the front, and I like to fold the wire over. So I'm going to fold this one this way, fold it and get our thread wrap back. And I'm going to fold this one down this way. And I'm going to do that and get another thread wrap back. So now we've got those wires come down with a lot of thread on them, and then they fold backwards, and we're going to wrap over it to really help lock those in. And again, this is something that is a really good idea to have on your desk, is a pair of super heavy duty, like electrical cutters, some sort of really heavy duty snips. You do not want to cut this with your fly tying scissors. It would only take you a few of these flies to really start dulling your fly tying scissors if you're cutting articulating wire. So there we have it. So this bead is going to kind of go back and forth a little bit, nice and easy. Almost give a little bit of a rattling movement where it's going to allow this rear hook to really swim, especially with your tail and your body on this guy. As you build up your front around it, it's going to kind of cover up a lot of this rig that you've built here in the middle. Another really good trick, and it doesn't take you very long of tying articulated flies for this to happen to you, is this hook will wind up sticking in the side of your hand somewhere. And it's going to be a pretty bad day when it does. So I've already done a full video on this, but go back and click on that one. But it's a great idea to have some hair clips. You can clip that rear hook here while you work on the front hook. If you do try full rotary, it keeps your hooks from flipping and spinning around. Like I said, you have only got to bury that in the side of your hand. Well, I'm a pretty tough learner, so it took me a few times. But maybe you're smarter than me, and it doesn't maybe take you at all to figure it out. But learn from me. Grab a couple of these hair clips to keep on your vise. Go back to the other episode up here and take a look at those to be able to see the other videos from that. The wire backing is great because it's pretty stiff. You don't have to add much else to it, but you might want a kind of a loose rear hook that really has a lot of movement and swimming motion in it. That's where some fly line backing can come in really handy. So I have two types of fly line backing. You can generally get these if you run into your local fly shop and you ask for just a couple feet or yards, they'll probably give it to you for free, or it is very cheap if you just buy a few yards of fly line backing. I have white and black so that I can match the whatever color fly I'm doing. If I do a dark fly, I'll just use black. If I'm doing a light fly, I'll use white. That is a really good technique. You can tie in the exact same way you just saw. If you've gone down the streamer rabbit hole like I have, you've probably seen a couple of flies where it will have a front shank to a rear hook. Pretty popular these days in some of the bigger streamers. I'm going to show you how to put that together. It's a pretty simple process. The first thing to do is grab a hook. Generally, you're going to use a little different style hook. Usually it's got a larger gap with a shorter shank. So you might have connected some zonker strip or gone ahead and tied some flash and some marabou in on this one. Now we're going to articulate it to the front. So we've got our shank. We're going to get it started. So the best trick that I have for the shank to start opening it, to get it connected, is to take your bodkin and go ahead and stab that shank with the bodkin to get it to open. Slide it in the eye, remove the bodkin, and snap it down to size there. Now we've got our rear hook connected. We can move to the front hook, or we can move up to the front shank, and we can start tying from here. This is again another great spot to be able to lock down that that extra hook like this to keep it from flopping around as you spin your vise. So this is how you do an articulated shank. You could also, a relatively common thing now too, is that you could tie your entire fly on the shank. You may not even tie anything on this rear hook. So you would just start tying this down, start making your thread wraps just like normal, fill up the shank, tie it, and you've got this nice rear hook back here ready to grab a fish as it comes up and eats. So game changers would use a very similar technique. You could do a hook to a shank, but you can also do shank to shanks to start building a swimming articulated movement. So you could do multiple shanks or multiple hooks in a series to build the game changer style flies. Once it gets to the front, you would just do a standard articulated through here, tie that down on your hook, and you'd be ready to go with a big long articulated tail. So now that you know how to make the hardware for an articulated fly, it's up to you to use the tools from this toolbox to build a fly yourself. So pick out a tail that you like, a body that you like, and a head that you like, and put it all together. Make sure when you do, you tag us on Instagram and show us your creations. We'd love to see them. And speaking of heads, we're actually going to move now to how to do some popper heads, or at least how to get the base down for some of the different heads on the market that you would see that you just slide on the front. Stay tuned for episode 13.